No bye, no aloha.
The mics are sensitive, so you gotta make sure you're on it. Dude, what a fucking night!
It was a fucking night.
What a two nights in a row. What
Yeah, it was
a
amazing. Yeah.
dude.
I don't even know what to say. I'm glad I made it home safe last night. It was amazing. It was cool. Being back in Hawaii has been great. Seeing everybody. It's been an amazing time.
Yeah. And you decided to come back like just on a whim. You're like,
So, because I did Les's benefit show,
yeah,
when the Fast Zone, not the Fast Zone, what do they call it now?
On King,
On
yeah.
King now. So I was asked if I would play that. Cliff called me up like 3 months ago and said, "Hey, would you play a show for maybe 2 months ago for Les?" And I said, "I don't think I can make it back. It's really expensive to get back here. First of all,
scoot this a
So,
little bit,
you know,
or you can just,
frozen?
yeah, there you go.
Right. It's
Perfect.
really expensive to get back here, but still, yeah, I have to arrange a lot of stuff in my life back there. So when I figured out that I can do it, I just called up Cliff and said, "Hey, I'm going to come back and I'll do the show." But really, I wanted to come back and pay my respect and then see like all my friends that I haven't seen. And,
Yeah.
like, I only get to see everybody like once a year back here.
Yeah,
So-
and there was so many people out that
I was
just
like,
you
yeah.
never see.
Right, at all.
was super
At
fun.
both shows, even like so. Your guys' show. When I walked around the corner, I'm like, "Oh shit, there's a show going on! Amazing!" I didn't even know. I think I saw it on Instagram.
Oh, really?
But
you
I
just came
didn't-
downtown.
I just came downtown.
Oh, that's
so I'm
crazy.
like, because I'm here. I only get 4 days. Let's just go down to the places that where I used to go. So when I walked around the corner, it was like a big group of people. I'm like, fuck, this is gonna be a fun night. Right.
Dude, that's
Very well.
great. That's
Yeah.
incredible. I know, yeah. When I talked to you about it last night, but when I was on stage and I saw you, and I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Like, I did see that you were coming back.
Right.
Like, you'd posted something. You're like, I'm on my way home. And I was like, oh, nuts.
Yeah.
Okay.
I posted like a little. I think it was like some Mahalo thing or something on the airlines that we were on, and I was just like, I was trying to get the no slippers. There was like a no slippers sign. I don't understand why you can't have slippers on a plane, but on the Hawaiian Airlines there was like a sign that said like no slippers, and it had like the circle crossed out with
Really?
a pair of slippers on it. Yeah, it was interesting. So I was trying to get that, but I think the lady sitting next to me was like, "What are you like trying to do? And try to be an Instagram star?" I'm like, "No, I'm just trying to take pictures
funny.
of something that's relative to how I'm coming back," because I didn't want to tell everybody. So all those old Fast Zone days, like all the Mike and like even back to Corey Fadina and all those guys from way back in the Connie White Park days, I didn't tell them I was coming back. I just showed up. So it was kind of cool to, not that I surprised them. They were just like, "Fuck, Aaron's back." I don't know.
Yeah.
You're like, "Hey, you're back." But it was still cool because I saw people that we went to the same elementary school.
Oh, shit.
But at around the same time. So it was kind of cool to just get back. But back to going over and see you perform. That was pretty amazing because we've played 2 other shows together, I think, one other show.
Like the Numbskulls reunion show back
Right,
in the day.
17th reunion show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because it was way back when. And then didn't you play the Les's benefit?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the
Yeah.
second. So.
That's
sorry,
right.
let me turn that off.
How dare you.
I'm not all together there this morning or this afternoon. So there we go. All right, cool. But it was an amazing night. You guys are brilliant on stage.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
It was super fun. I'm lucky. I just did a podcast with those guys. We talked about it a whole bunch. I'm lucky that they're so great because I just get to bounce around
Yeah.
and I just get
It's
to
more
have
than that.
the most fun time
Yeah.
ever. And they are just a solid band that
Yeah.
holds it down. You know what I mean? It's super fucking fun.
But it's interesting because although you're bouncing around, there's more to it than that. I mean, being the lead singer, you also have to command, and you're commanding, and you have a lot to do. You can get as drunk as you want, but if you're just terrible, it's still a job almost. Right?
Yeah.
It's love, it's
You-
life, but you're still up there to.
You're going to have the most amount of
Yeah.
eyes on you.
Yeah.
Typically. That's something I remember Josh saying before, I'd kind of like butt heads and say like, oh, I don't want to play that song. Let's play this song, blah, blah,
Right,
blah, blah,
right,
blah.
right.
And he'd be like, not even being a dick, but he'd be like, look, here's the deal. I have the most amount of eyes on me. Like, just let me call the songs. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right.
And I was like, oh yeah, I feel that. Like, that makes sense,
Also, there is like an archetype or whatnot of like each band member. The drummers are a certain way, bassists are a certain way, lead singers are a certain way. A lot of like egocentric like behaviors, like also like not only is all eyes on you, but you have to project for them to stay. I don't know if I always buy into that, because I think like what I saw with your guys is there was a cohesiveness between even the drummer, the bassist, the guitarist, and you. So I think because of that, it made it interesting to watch the band as a whole. So I can appreciate that. But for myself, I'm a wreck unless I drink before I go on the stage. I'm a
Yeah.
wreck. I don't like to perform. I love performing. I don't like the tension where you get before you get on the stage.
I totally.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
understand that completely.
Yeah, and it's like you're real quiet, and I just I'm thinking about how I'm gonna fuck up or something. I always forget lyrics, so that's just the name of the game for me. But then afterwards too, I know we talked about that. Like afterwards, for me, I don't take compliments very well, and you brought up a good point. You're like, just let them compliment you. But I mean, it's just it's weird being in a band. It's weird being in a band for a long time.
It's the only thing I know how to do. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only way. Like, I've thought about moving before,
Yeah.
right? Like, you moved, and all I could ever think about, like, everything came back around to how would I play music?
Right.
And I don't know if I'm not the type to like really go out and make friends. I was actually watching a podcast yesterday, and it was this guy talking about making friends, and I was like, I never even thought about that, because I've
How to
always
make
been here.
friends?
How to make friends. Like, what would you
Yeah.
do if you moved to a new town? You did this. I mean,
Right.
you did this thing, but
it's I don't know. I think we talked about this too last night. I think we had our early last night podcast.
yeah, at the
last
bar.
night. Yeah. But I think I moved up there, and I think for me in Hawaii growing up, like all of our friends, once we got to become an adult, ended up at bars.
Yeah.
And whether it was the Hideaway, which is still like one of my favorite places ever on this island, or Downbeat, or any of these bars, we've all ended up there. We had a place where we can always go down and say like I came in, I flew in, went to dinner, and then showed up at your show, and it was going on. So that's easy to maintain that kind of
Yeah.
friends. Going to San Francisco, I'm like, I'm in a certain age. I'm not going to say, but it's if I go to a bar there, like I'm just meeting other people's groups of friends.
Yeah.
It's hard. I don't have.
Yeah.
I don't
Breaking
know.
into a new group of friends, or
Yeah.
because it's I've thought about the band thing, and then making friends I didn't really stress on,
Yeah.
but hearing somebody else bring it up, I was like, oh, that's an interesting thought. You just go somewhere, you don't just have friends, maybe work.
Right.
But I had a buddy tell me when she moved out here, she was like, first thing I did was become a regular at a bar. Just go to
That's
frequent. And that's definitely one way. They were bringing up in this podcast I was watching, they're bringing up, go do start something that you've always wanted to start, like maybe if you want to go do jujitsu, or if you
Right.
want to learn a language, or
take a course.
yeah,
in
something
college.
like this. Because it feels silly to, as an adult, be like, hi,
Right.
let's be friends, can I get your number, or like
and we do kind of separate ourselves by the way we look too, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not meeting everybody.
Yeah.
Maybe we were lucky or you guys are lucky in Hawaii, because in Hawaii kind of everybody kind of gels or talks similar. Kind of
Mhm.
looks San Francisco, that's the same way too, but you don't see a lot of blending of different you don't see a lot of the white collar blending with the blue collar.
Oh,
You can
okay,
see that. Maybe
okay.
not. I'm still only about 4 years into that city, but I can't go to the bar every single night. It's fucking expensive there.
oh, for sure.
Like when the other day
Yeah.
I ordered you drinks, I was at 3 or 2 shots and a beer and something, and she was like, what was it, $13 or something?
Yeah, it was 2 shots and a Red Bull, $16.
$16,
And you're like, I was,
perplexed.
yeah, you're like, you had 40 out. Like, what?
And that's sad. I was like, it was sad enough that I was willing to pay that first. But I was thinking in San Francisco, you go to a dive bar, that's one thing, that's fine. And there's crap loads of them there, and there are some that I go to, but like I was thinking it was at least going to cost $22 or something.
Yeah.
So you can't go there and drink all the time.
That's insane.
So I've only made a few friends out there, that's all you really need. But I work. My wife works.
Yeah.
A lot. And I've got enough friends back here to last me a lifetime. they just need to be able to come visit me out there.
Yeah.
And I have a house, so
It's a good destination.
yeah, it really is. It's
I've been
kinda-
going
Mhm.
at least once a year since I was a kid because my dad's out there.
right.
And, well, a lot of my family's out there. My mom's in Sacramento, bunch of family in the Bay. But it was, I met my dad when I was like 8, 9 maybe, and I was living out here. And he's like, come visit me, come visit me. So every year, you know.
How did that happen? How did that happen?
How did I meet
Your
him?
Dad, yeah.
He knew, he basically, he got to know, he was friends with my uncle
Okay.
when they were young. And then he started to hang out with my auntie, and my grandmother raised me out here, or we moved out here when I was like 7, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he basically got to me through my uncle and aunt, then to my grandmother, and basically like one day she just goes like, oh, hey, do you know who your dad is? And I was like I had this guy who I thought was my dad when I was a kid. It was like, that's not your dad. And I was like, okay, whatever. And it really didn't freak me out all that much. I was just like, okay. And she
Yeah.
goes, this guy, do you remember this guy from your childhood? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, that's your dad. And I was like, okay.
That's interesting though.
And-
It didn't
and no,
freak you
it's
out.
totally-
It didn't freak you out.
No.
Does
And
it freak
like,
you out now in retrospect? Do you
No.
look back and go, no?
no, I think that, I don't know what it was that set me up to just be kind of like, okay, like about situations like that.
Right.
But it does not freak me out one bit. And yeah, I flew over there. I was really shy. I remember he showed up. He had ginger snaps, and we jumped on this huge trampoline at my aunt's house. And I was like, all right. I was like, this guy's kind of cool, you know.
Right. Right.
And I was like, can you do a backflip? And he's like, yeah. And he did a backflip, and I was like, cool.
That worked. You're like that, and you guys have been cool ever since.
I think we like kind of butted heads at first, trying to figure out how the relationship was gonna go.
Right.
Like, how does this work?
Right.
You know, I wasn't like a dick. Like, you weren't there or anything. Like, I didn't give a fuck. But he was very much. He'd be like, I'm so sorry. And it wasn't until I think I was 19. Every year I'd go visit him, and then he'd just say, I'm so sorry. I should have been there. I should have. And I would do, dude, it's all good,
Relax,
man. We're
yeah,
good. And when I was 19, I think, I sat him down, and I was just like, look, have I ever given you any shit about anything, about not being around? Because I know I didn't, because it doesn't bother me.
It's not- yeah.
We have a cool relationship. So I was like, from here on out, you can't bring this up anymore.
You were the adult. kinda.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
really,
he
no,
straight
no.
up said that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would agree in that situation.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay. And from then on, it's just we've been best friends.
That's nice.
It's
honestly.
great. I love
that,
it.
That definitely doesn't happen a lot, and I think a lot of people, like for myself, I get shocked because it's definitely out of the norm. I've known my family, or my parents, I've known since birth. They didn't just come into my life; I came into theirs. But that's a 4, 5, 10, 20 hour podcast. I don't even want to talk about that. But it's always interesting to this is a really cool thing, doing a podcast, because you get to know things that you typically won't know about someone, even friends, even the people you talk to hundreds of times, because you're not in the right place. You're out.
Yeah.
So this is cool. I'm glad you invited me to do this.
I'm stoked, man. The whole reason I wanted to do it is because I get to, like I said it with Josh the very first time. It's a rare occasion to sit down, put your phone away or whatever, and you're not focused on anything else.
Right.
You're not gonna, we're not gonna be sitting here and pull up Instagram and just ignore each other.
Right.
We're gonna talk.
And how often do you do that? Like I don't even think I do that. Maybe with my wife. I think right now this is the only time that I've done this in a long time. So and it was great when I think you text me. Did you text me? You're like, hey, you want to come do a podcast? Or you were gonna come in on October? No.
I hit you up. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm gonna be in the Bay
You're
Area.
gonna be in the Bay Area.
And I was like, hey, I know you're in the Bay Area. I'll bring my podcast stuff out. And you're like, yeah.
Well, shit. When you get up there, we have to go do something.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
So many,
Yeah.
There's so many things. At least there's a lot of bars. There's so many bars to go to.
Yeah.
Not a lot of shows, but there's lots of bars.
Oh, you got a lot more shows than we do out here.
What's going on with the shows out here? So you guys had Descendants.
Yeah, we've
That
actually
looks pretty big. Actually,
BAMP has been bringing out a lot of bands. Thrice is coming out.
Amazing Live.
Yeah.
They sound like the album. So it's
I love them.
Amazing Live. Yeah.
A lot of comedians have been coming out, which I'm pretty stoked on. I got tickets to see Tom Segura at the end of the year, and then Dane Cook. He's doing like a
Oh, is
club tour.
He's back in action.
Yeah,
Cool.
and
'Cause he's interesting.
he got so much hate, you know.
Yeah, he did.
But I'm still down. Like I want to go see him.
He's fun.
He's been doing a lot of podcasts lately, and I've been listening to it, and he seems so down to earth now.
Right. Versus, well, I mean,
This is just me watching him talk to somebody else.
right.
But he seems chill, and I think that he had like a crazy ego at the time.
Right.
He was on top of the world.
Right. He was, and I think that happens to anybody that doesn't have money and then gets a shitload
dude.
of money, and then that's what I can look at. Andrew Dice Clay. When I was young, Andrew Dice Clay was. I don't think the vocabulary of everybody was so caustic back then. Like curse words are there. You know, you look back at Richard Pryor, like that was taboo.
Oh yeah.
Eddie Murphy was taboo. Andrew Dice Clay pushed it. Sam Kinison pushed it to another level. And now, how do you become like taboo and be a comedian and sell out like the Rose Bowl or whatever? You know, sell out huge shows. Dane Cook did it. Like
Yeah.
he has I can't even think of one that's been as big as him since Dane Cook.
Oh, Kevin Hart is insane.
Do you find him funny?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah.
No?
I don't. I like
Different
to be
strokes.
agreeable with people. Yeah. But I do like to be agreeable with people. I've watched a bunch of his movies. I've seen his stand up, and I give him the opportunity. I don't understand it. I want to.
Well, it's all good. I mean,
But-
not everybody likes everything.
Yeah. But I don't know.
Yeah. I don't like everybody. That's for sure. I don't like
Neither
every
do I.
comedian. You know.
Yeah.
There's definitely. Yeah, I'll definitely. My roommate who moved out, the first roommate that lived here, Cody. He was super into stand up. Watches so much stand up.
Was he funny?
Cody?
Yeah.
Yeah, he would
Like-
do it. He would
Oh,
do
cool.
stand up.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he would
That
do it
takes
at like
balls.
Anna's or at O'Toole's. They have
Yeah.
like these, not open mics, but like sign up, go do stand up, whatever. So he was just constantly watching it. So I got into a bunch more from him.
Right.
But yeah, there'd definitely be times I'd come out, he'd be watching something. I'm like, not for me.
Not for yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, a lot of stand up coming out to Hawaii, which is really fun. And then BAMP's bringing out a bunch of bands. Nathaniel Radcliffe and the Night Sweats were just out this last weekend.
How were they live?
I didn't
you
even
go?
know they were coming.
Oh yeah. That's another
So I missed
thing
it.
that that's another thing that struggled here is promotion. I feel like with bands, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like even when I was still living here, you're like, oh, there's a show, and I found out 3 days before it.
Yeah, 3 days is kind of the attack point.
Yeah.
Depending on what kind of show. Like if we're talking about smaller local shows,
Yeah.
I have my promotion method, which is basically I just on the Wednesday I text all my friends the flyer and I say, hey, can you just throw this up on Instagram?
Right.
And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, people scroll through and they see the flyer 20 times. They're like, well, looks like everyone's going. It'll probably that's what I think people want to know. Like, I want to go, but is everybody going to go?
Right. I think it's interesting because when I look back at 98 and with no Instagram,
Yeah.
no Facebook, there was what the heck? I never even used them, but used to go into
Oh, the
room-
scene board.
the scene boards. Yes, and I never even used them, but that's how people would find out. Or we'd paste flyers all over everywhere you go. But I feel like nowadays, I think it's hard. I think it's harder to have like people show up than it was when we were playing in the beginning because first of all, there was nothing else to do. You didn't really know about. Like there wasn't, there was social gatherings where like we're subcultured kids, I guess you'd even say, could hang out, and there was a lot of tapping shoulders going on through it. But nowadays, I feel like for you guys or any other band, if you swipe it, it's easy to swipe it, say I don't want to go, Is they want to swipe and say I want to go, and I think because it's so accessible to hear everybody's music, it's got to be harder to pull people into shows now.
Yep.
Like I could just, it's not an era that I think I could redo. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a special time, that just pre-internet time.
Yeah.
And I feel like people talk about this a lot,
Yeah.
in not only just like the punk scene, in all types of different ways.
Right.
That was a very special time.
Yeah.
And then when it first started, it helped.
Right.
All the chat, did you have AIM?
I was never into computers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Only time I ever did anything with computers was to like make flyers
Right.
or like actually not even that. I think I'm maybe misremembering. We would just like cut out stuff.
Yeah.
And then glue it.
Yep.
And then go to
Kinko's.
and
Yeah,
then-
totally.
Yeah, and then blow it and like, how much money do you have? Like, can we get 15 more? Post
Yeah.
by a school.
It's funny now because all the flyers are so pro.
They look amazing.
Like that, I don't know if you saw that one for the Rat Show. I made it in 5 minutes on my phone.
On
Just
your phone?
chick, 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 chick. Like, real quick.
Just real quick.
Did not print out any paper copies
And just sent it.
and just
yeah.
sent it around. That was
See,
it.
I don't know if my generation, like the teachers and everything, like they literally wanted to keep computers out of our hands. When I was in school, like if you wanted to do a report, we're talking maybe junior high or something. Like it was like they wanted it to be written still. And maybe,
Really?
Yeah, it was really odd. I mean, and it was really odd. Like we had a computer, but I couldn't. It wasn't like something that was. I don't know how to say it, but accessible. Like we weren't writing our book reports and like utilizing a computer. So I feel like it wasn't something that was forced onto our generation. So I think when it started to come and like message boards were a big thing to say what band you didn't like and who you didn't like in that band.
Yeah.
They had was it the hot punk? Did you ever hear about that? They used to have one that would do like Hawaii's hot punk.
Oh,
guy.
God.
And those things were horrible, by the way. Those message boards would have the most inflammatory crap about bands in Hawaii. But that was the only way we can get people to go or learn about it. You guys, I mean, performance is one thing, but you guys kill it on, and that's, I think, that again back to where it's that whole band one unit. I think that's what that good vibe is what probably brings everybody to your show, because I'd go back to watch you guys even though you guys aren't around anymore.
It was super fun. Last night I was so pumped being at that show. I got a few compliments from just like some old school guys, like Mike Stout was rocking the Rat shirt on stage. Like that was cool. Yeah, I had a couple people just be like, "Hey man, I just want to let you know, like, sad your band's done. I really liked your band." And I was like, "Oh, well that's awesome." And me and Kat would joke around, just because we get really sarcastic and just roast each other when we're around each other, and we bring that out of each other, I think. And we were talking about like, well, the band's breaking up, and we were saying like we should just blast out like, you guys don't even care, you weren't even coming to our shows anyways. And like we kind of were like going with that for a little bit, but I don't, after last night and after this whole weekend, I don't think that's the case. I think people have their lives. They can't come to every show. Not everybody can make it out. Not everybody's,
We played the band, so history, which everybody doesn't really care about, maybe not, but the band originally started was an idea, and Cliff, in my opinion, was the spark of all that. And there's like a dozen different stories of how it actually came into play, whether it was Cliff and I, or Jesse and Cliff, or Darren, Jesse and Cliff, and there was this whole thing. But we were all a group, and we were all friends, and we all contributed. Darren already had like a bit of a following because he was in other bands, established bands in the scene, at least by my how I remember it. And so, even though if I know where I'm going, but when I entered into the band, Darren bailed. They were releasing a new CD, and I had 2 weeks, got in there, and then we just kept playing. And it was like completely different band because I didn't do the punk ska stuff. Like I couldn't do the pick it up.
Yeah.
I could say it, but I couldn't do the vibe. It wasn't me. I wanted to be more flamboyant and more in your face and just, like a hardcore David Bowie without the makeup, I guess. But through the years, and there was a lot of them, because if you look at from 95 into, like I said, the 12 like reunion shows, we still played shows. Whether it was 2 or 3 a year, we still did it. What I noticed is we were at a time where it was like pre-21s, like pre-bar times.
Yeah.
So like you would get like 18-year-olds in there, even 17, all ages shows. We had all ages shows.
Yeah.
There's venues to do that. And so kids would come from schools, and then so the shows would get big, and that's when the scene, like, I mean, even with 86 List and everything, like all these, everybody had big shows because all these kids would show up. And then I feel like 2 to 3 years, or every other year, it'd get small for a little bit because I think kids would graduate.
Yeah.
And then they'd buy like their Hondas and they'd get out of the punk rock scene. They're like, I now have my little speeder car, and I like girls, and I don't really want to listen to music that probably ostracizes me from the society. So I feel like maybe now that still goes on. Maybe people just kind of grow up and grow out of it. They have to get their own life. But then you can always do reunion shows.
It's funny. I think that last Numbskull show, that was
Oh, the one at
the Pink Cadillac one.
That was an amazing show.
That was crazy.
I,
The windows were all fogged up.
Foggy.
Like, I mean,
They-
it was
They complained downstairs because it was wood flooring. That
Really?
Was scene. Rose was the owner of that club at that time, and she's like, "You guys can play anytime you ever want," because that was a really successful night for everybody who played. But those shows were leading up to that. Like it was our last show, but like there was like Cliff and I put on I think 4 shows there ourselves. Really just do it yourself. Like we didn't know how to do it. We like bought our own we went to like Good Guys and rented like the PA.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
you guys
like,
had a PA. I remember
Yeah, we did.
seeing the speakers.
That was given. I don't. Allie Shibasaki.
Oh.
If you saw her, you probably know. She gave us all that stuff years ago. We were gifted that. Thank you. But yeah, we had that. But I think that was done by that time, because that needed to have an amp and everything. But we did a lot of those shows where we put them on ourselves. We also paid the bands, so which is really interesting because I mean, you know how it goes in shows.
I have a similar story.
Yeah,
When I
20
started
bucks.
throwing shows.
Yeah.
And
People don't know how to take it, right? They're like, because I don't know if you had this. I mean, even with Josh, because Josh played some of those shows with us. Like, I mean, if you're making $200 or $150 for punk rock, it sounds cheesy, but that's actually more pay than I can say from a lot of promoters that I've made on this island.
Absolutely.
Individually, just let you know that all have cars. Just saying.
Yeah, when
No shade.
No, for
but
sure.
shade.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's who the money should go to.
Yeah.
We played at I mean, it was right around the time that you guys had broken up, but Coffee Factory was the place that me and Josh were always throwing shows. And I remember just throwing this show and doing the cutout flyer thing. Yeah, like kind of internet promotion, but not so much. You could, I don't even think, back then it was like Zanga site was the,
I remember that.
yeah, so like, I don't know if you could even post pictures of flyers or how that even worked. But anyway, yeah, we'd go down to the mall, pass out flyers, and then, yeah, the shows were going really well for a little bit.
I remember I would drive by those shows or something, or we'd go buy it, and you guys had good turnouts.
They'd be crazy.
Yeah.
There was a
get
good,
really
there was a good
turnouts.
like 2 years, I think.
Because that was the place. There was I don't think there was any other place at that point. Was
Pink
there?
Cadillac was still going,
Was it?
but there was a big divide.
Yeah.
I feel like there's been a divide in the scene for quite a long time, and I kind of feel like it might be going away a little bit, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. There's just so few venues now
Right.
that there's not really any room.
What do you think? Like, I always like some of the old guys, and when the old dated rockers here, we talk about that. Like, the guys that were before us, tough as nails. The punk scene was way more brutal.
Yeah.
And we were like, in their eyes, like just sucked, right? Like it was a different thing, and but they still coached us. We had
Okay.
coaching. Like the scene still had rules. There was, and so that I think created the policing kind of like created a one scene maybe instead of different things, because people could always go to a different show somewhere else and wreak havoc. So that created something, but I don't know if that maybe they're like my generation just was like, okay, we're done with it and just left it. And maybe you guys had to carry it on, and that might have broke it. Like, what do you think caused the divide?
There was always, well, obviously like different genre bands
Right.
would kind of click together for sure. But Hawaii's always been really great about having, a reggae band and a punk band
Right.
and a rock and roll band and an indie band on the same show. Like even back then, like it'd be like you guys, 86 List, No Void, Lose Money,
Lose money.
very different. All like that doesn't happen in the mainland so much.
No.
You typically in the mainland you see 4 bands that sound just about the same.
about the same, yeah.
That's what
And different sides of the island here.
Yeah.
Produce different, like, that's another cool thing. You can have, like, even going back, like, to Wolfat days, which were crazy shows, or Coffee Line, like bands like Grapefruit, like that side of the island, like their sound was so different.
Mhm.
Or if you had bands that came from North Shore, their sounds were so different. So you're right. I think being able to be on an island where you'd have like all these different bands and on a different, like, created a place for people that wanted to listen to different music could go. But I feel like, I don't know the scene anymore. I've been out of it so long. Like, playing a reunion show doesn't mean I have a good idea of what goes on. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've been out of it for a long time. I feel like you guys would probably be the best to say. I just know that the scenes back when, like, at the last days that we threw that show that we were talking about, and I don't even remember what year that was, but I feel like every band had a really good following.
Yeah. That was a really good time.
Yeah. Everybody could pull a crap load of people into a show, and it was like, I mean, that was my favorite little era because there was there wasn't a lot of like violence, even like people were there to like, have fun.
That's what Warren was saying too.
Yeah.
That kind of that old school scene had a lot of violence,
Right.
and it scared a lot of kids away.
Total.
And so you brought this up last night, and you said,
Cliff and I talked about
we
it.
didn't want to have fights at our shows.
Right.
And Warren said the same thing. He said
He's totally chill like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
he totally he wanted to squash that out. And so I think maybe that mentality made it a lot safer for kids to come, because when I started coming to your guys' shows,
Yeah.
I was like 16, 17.
Yeah. I remember you and your little crew. I remember you and also because you came to so many shows and I have enough videos, so you're easy to spot. I'm just saying. Sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
No. It was just a great time, and I feel like there'd be me and all my friends, a lot of girls.
A lot of girls. That was, and I think we talked about that too.
Yeah.
So for Cliff and I, and it wasn't a lot of girls so that we can hook up with girls.
Right, no.
That wasn't the concept. Like Cliff and I were very nerdy about music in the band. And I wish you would have been able to make it today, because we talked about, like, as cheesy as it's going to sound, like, we talked about our how we're going to be on stage. You know, who's going to sing what and how we're going to react to that. Not like our emotions, because everything's free. When I'm up there, I'm just whatever. But like everything else is kind of strategic. The set list is very strategic. It's done for a reason. And how we set up on the stage. Like last night, all the other bands stayed on stage. We wanted to take our mics off the floor. So everything is like something that separates.
Yeah.
But so we were very like, when I joined, I couldn't do Darren's stuff because Darren had this really raw punk rock kind of like really high pitchy sound, and I wasn't that. So we started seeing less people coming to the shows. So for our shows, we wanted to have no violence. So how do we do that? If we can get our own friends to stop and break up the violence, or we can get our own friends to work the door. And B, we wanted to get more girls to come to the show. Because if you want more girls to come to the show, because girls buy your albums too. They'll buy your stuff, and guys want to come to the show. And it was about building a fan base. I played music. We wrote music and we played music because we liked the people that were standing in front of us, and it wasn't solely about ego, but the creation of it was like, if we can get more people to hear us. And we also wanted to fucking do it for a living. Like, I wanted to go on tour.
Yeah.
I wanted to go. I didn't want to. You can ask Cliff the whole band. I never ever said I want to make shitloads of money. I just said I want to be in a band, tour, and just live doing that and just like make enough money to live and that's my life. So that was all brought into Cliff and I's like why we wanted to have more people come. And I'll tell you what, we caught a lot of fucking grief from a lot of different bands, like whether it was like sold out or we're soft or we're like you're no longer there's a one I always give him shit about it, but Mike, and I'm not gonna say what band he was from, he was like, you guys suck. And we're friends, like, but he predates me in the music scene, so it always hurt my feelings of like, fucking, it sucks to hear that other bands don't like you, right?
Yeah.
It's a hard thing that when you respect people and they don't like you. But we wanted to not be on the floor. We wanted to be on the stage. I like to be up somewhere, but when I was really young, I liked to be on the floor. I didn't mind getting hit and doing all that. But as I got older, I like to be on stage. Who doesn't want to be like on tour and doing that stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, that was my dream as well.
Yeah.
Hell Caminos really took off with the touring thing. Mike was insane on the internet. When MySpace came out, I was always kind of a couple steps back. Like I didn't get a MySpace for a while. I didn't get a Facebook for a really long time. I didn't get an Instagram. Like I was late to all of this. Every next step. And but Mike was on MySpace, and he booked our whole tour on MySpace. Or we did, I think, three tours, and he'd book them all on MySpace. He'd get on, make friends in every town, and talk to them back and forth.
Right.
And we'd show up places and people would be singing along to song. I'm like, how did you do that?
That's crazy.
It's really crazy to go to San Angelo, Texas.
Right.
And for the first time in my life, I'm in Texas and I'm playing a song and somebody's singing along. Like, we made a killing on merch. We had a really great merch guy who was just, he was just so suave and just like, hey, what's up, guys? Like, come over here, blah, blah, blah. Strike up deals. It was crazy.
So that reminds me, because now I'm thinking about the first time I saw your guys' band play. It was Coffee Talk, right? That was the name. Was that
Coffee Talk was the one up
on?
Yeah,
I think that might have been the first time or somewhere. I just remember the band was, your guys' band was so well put together, as in how Cliff and I wanted, trying to do, we did it was an image.
Totally.
It was
yeah.
a total image, and the image works, and we tried to put that together. So I remember seeing, maybe it was there one off of Keimoku? There was a little show. It used to be a Chinese restaurant or something, or was it a coffee?
That's Coffee Factory.
Was that Coffee Factory?
Yeah.
Maybe it was there. I can't remember.
We weren't together yet.
You weren't together then?
No, Coffee Factory was done, and then Coffee Talk happened.
Oh, okay.
And then Hell Camino started.
Because I know that, I remember I think you had a pompadour.
Yeah.
You had nice pompadour. I remember that. I always see people with hair. And it's weird, but if you have good hair, I'm into it. But your guys' band, the way you guys communicated on stage, I've just felt like there wasn't that in the scene too. And I think that as that started to grow, because I felt like Cliff and I we took a lot of our shit from 1980s metal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We had that same we had that same phase.
I'm a Motley Crue fan.
Yeah.
Die hard 1000%. And if I could just.
Did you watch The Dirt?
Oh yeah, 6
What'd you think? Oh yeah, you liked it.
So we'll segue because I can talk in circles. I have ADD, whatever. But I'm gonna talk about Motley Crue because they are still one of my favorite bands of all time, and they didn't even write the best songs in my opinion. They're kind of very simple and Mick Mars. I mean, they packaged themselves, they sold themselves. So I've gotten a lot of discussions with people about that movie. I'm like, what did you want? You wanted some people wanted more of the songwriting, or they wanted to know how they put things together. I said their band was based on sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah.
And that's what The Dirt was on: sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And you're not going to get an existential conversation based on titties and cocaine. I mean, you might, if you have titties and cocaine, you might have that conversation, but I don't know. How did you feel about it?
I liked it. I took it for what it was.
What did you think of Machine Gun Kelly?
He did a good job.
He did, right?
He did a really good job.
Yeah, I think so too.
The whole almost like airheady
Yeah.
vibe. You know,
That's
Nailed it.
still, yeah, and he's so
I love Tommy Lee.
yeah, I had three like huge like idols that I looked at that were in that genre. Like there was always like the Bowies and Freddie Mercury's, and which are now coming back into light after their death. But like it was Mike Ness, and then you had Tommy Lee, and I don't know why, but there was something that was like amazing about that guy. And Machine Gun Kelly, I think, played him to the T. Like he was just a doofy kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to that.
No, that's why I didn't want to say airheady, but
yeah, but he was.
there's
Like,
I don't know how
Southern
else to put it.
California, like, bro, dude, what's up?
Yeah.
Let's go. And he was young, but I really I listen to that music still. It's what's on my. I mean, I listen to Whitesnake. I listen to all the bands that all the other bands hated. When all the animal name bands came out, like White Lion. If you want to listen to guitarists, like those bands are amazing musicians, and they're amazing singers. I don't sing. I just
That
yell.
time in music, I don't even understand. It'd be so intimidating because
Right.
with the whole punk rock thing, it's so easy. Oh, you just grab three guys that can barely play.
And that was the concept too, right? Because if anything more, it wasn't punk rock, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Rats, I wrote the most simple parts. There's nothing crazy going on.
Right.
In Hell Caminos, I tried to, do all these solos. I'm kind of over it.
Solos.
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
I could be better.
Yeah. I mean, I would think it would be intimidating too. Like the singing alone, like you go listen to, I think it was the first Guns N' Roses album that was recorded live, and you listen to Axl Rose sing live, and you'd want to punch yourself in the mouth. Like you can talk all the crap you want about those bands, and yes, towards the end, everything was like live shows. You knew they were playing over records and all this stuff, but I am a huge fan of that era. And Motley Crue I've seen them several times live. I'm not going to go into story, but it's like to see bands in their 40s and 50s still doing it, and it's an amazing thing, because that like us, like when how we got into music and why we wanted to get into music, to have that passion, still do it, whether money's involved in it or not. I mean, it makes sense to me why AC/DC was still touring up until last year.
Damn, that's crazy.
I could talk about music forever and nerd out on it.
Yeah, I don't understand how you would go about starting a band like Motley Crue. Like even just watching, they didn't really get all that into
No,
it,
they didn't.
and they were all in other bands prior, I think. But that scene must have been crazy.
I would have enjoyed it. I would have gone ham every day. I would have had a great time. That's probably why I wasn't there. And also that I'm not old enough, but still, yeah, I'm close enough. But like, who's good at telling that? Did you get Mickey Finn? on
No,
the
I
podcast
got to
yet?
get him. You
gotta get Mickey, because he's got the best stories.
I
and
bet.
he's an amazing storyteller.
He's a great singer.
He's a great singer. So yeah, he's an amazing. We saw him. We saw Jet Boy in San Francisco. They played at the bottom of the hill, and he was just playing it down. He's like, I don't know if I'm be able to sing as well. When I saw him, I'm like, they just all blew me away. But Mickey's band was different. It was a lot more. It was harder than like what we would think of Soften. It was a little harder. His voice was always really a harder sound. He's an amazing singer. I dig him, and he's nice. So get him on here.
Yeah,
I'll watch it.
dude. So what? You're flying out tomorrow?
Fly out tomorrow. Yeah, I wish I could have stayed a couple more days, but I can't.
Real quick one.
Yeah, I can't do another weekend.
Not like this one.
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
was nice, and
I saw the look in your eye last night, and I was like,
time to go. But you know what? And another reason back to why I flew out here. I first met Les. I think I was 18 or 19 years old, at Connie White Park. and that was where like the Connie White Cockroaches all hung out, and that's what they're like. So Mike and Corey and like they were all really. I mean, I can go on and name. So if I don't name your name, yeah, I'm sorry. But there was such a big group of them as well. You had the Numbskulls and Numbskullettes. You had all these Brown Boys. You had all these different groups. So that all hung out in different areas. But I remember walking down. It was my first time. I was being introduced into to that group of people, and I think I went to school with a few of them, or at least they're like girlfriends at the time. So when I got there, he just looked like he was like another member of the Ramones.
Oh,
he
right.
had the hat with the bill up, with the hair, like Ramon hair was all dark, and he was just sitting there it was all dark, and he was just playing acoustic, and I think he was singing bra 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 bra, I should have graduated, and I was just, it was captivating, and he was such a nice guy, and it's such a huge loss to Hawaii's punk scene too, because I mean he's also the only one I know that wrote a song that a band in the mainland actually bought.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the Queers bought one of his songs.
Whoa.
Yeah, so and I can't think of another one. So if you Wikipedia Les Hernandez, you'll find that out. But like, because when the Queers came down and all these other bands, like we all went to Connie White and hang out with them. So there was this whole different subgenres of like sub like times in the scene, like in the 90s and 80s that were just separated, but still, yeah, like the Fast Zone was really where the Numbskulls got their start, I think. So, but that, so hearts out to Les.
Yeah, man, for sure. That was my first show that I've ever been to there.
Was it?
I didn't even know. I'd heard the name before, and I didn't know what it was. And then my studio's upstairs, and Proof's right next door. So I'm always in that little spot. And when I saw On King open there, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I kind of poked my head in one time, and I was like, that looks cool. And Mike was like, we should throw a El Camino show here. It looks like a cool spot. And I was like, yeah, maybe, whatever. We didn't end up doing it. Maybe we will. But right around the corner where Scarlet is now was a place called Club Hawaii. And that was my first introduction to Chinatown.
Really?
Yeah. It was Auto Cake one night. It could have, I don't know exactly what show it was. I'm sure 86 was playing. And me and Josh had just started hanging out. And
yeah, because how long have you known Josh?
I met him like right when I first started going to shows, pretty much.
Is he older or younger?
He's like just a year older.
Just a year older?
Yeah, not even a full year, maybe. Very close in age. And I don't know. I don't remember how we first started hanging out. It must have been through Otto. I was hanging out with Otto, and we went to go see Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
I remember when Otto was doing that.
And then, so I was I played bass. I always played bass in that. And we did the play.
I remember the play.
And
I never went, but I remember that got great reviews.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. And so it was around that time, right before Black Square started. And Otto goes, we're going to go to this place after the punk show tonight. Do you guys want to go? And, back when punk shows started at like 5 or 6 and we're over by like 9 or 10.
I miss those days, though.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
You can't even
That's
get anybody
weird.
to play before 9 now.
Now you're playing, the date is the 16th, but you go on at 12.
Right.
So you're actually at the date.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's fucking weird. Yeah.
So yeah, he goes, we're going to go to this place, and there's this, it's like a dance party, and we're like, a dance party? And he goes, it's cool. He's like, it's where like all the older punk rockers go. And I was like, okay, and we go to the show, or we go to, not the show, but the party. It's at Club Hawaii. I think it was called Controversy. And we get there, and we're like, there's nobody here. And he goes, nobody shows up until midnight. And we're like, okay. And I was straight edge at the time, and 19, I think.
Right.
And me and Josh just walk up to the bar and order beers just to have something to hold. I didn't even drink it. But I was like, wow, they just served us beers. This is crazy, right? And we just stood in the corner, and Otto kind of like bopped around and did his thing. And then sure enough, midnight hit, and we were like, whoa, this is crazy. What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my introduction to Chinatown, and man,
What show was it? Do you remember?
it was. So there was a show at Otto's
Mm-hmm.
at the bakery. I don't remember who played. I'm assuming it was 86 List.
That was at a bakery up by the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it Ullena Road?
I don't. I did play. That's where I first met Josh. That was a long.
My first local show, aside from the first show I ever went to here, was Sticklers and the Numbskulls opening for the Vandals.
Oh wow, that's weird.
Yeah,
We're old.
that was my first show, and then I
never
went.
remember playing that show.
Really?
Yeah.
And then I went and
Oh,
saw.
wow.
I went and saw you guys. It was. I saw another flyer that was like Sticklers, Numbskulls, 86 List.
Oh, was it? I'm sorry, I don't really. It was at
World
that makes me
Cafe.
sound really terrible. Well, After Dark.
World Cafe. Yep.
World Cafe. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That was in that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was crazy.
Yeah, now I remember. Yeah.
World Cafe was the best.
Yeah,
I
it
love
was.
that venue.
Yeah.
I think that was my favorite venue. It was a perfect size, not too
Stage was
big.
good. You had separation.
Yeah,
You could get up on the stage railings and stand up on the.
saw so many good shows there.
Yeah, there was a lot.
You guys played with AFI there for $12.
Yes. How
That
crazy was that?
that was killer, and they were so nice. They hung out with everybody after the show.
Interesting, goofy story. I always thought it was really cheesy that I'd sign that people would ask for autographs.
Yeah.
Right. It's a weird thing, and but it was. I mean, when I look back on it, I think, well, that's super cool because I've had a lot of really good stories from people that have helped, like the band helped them through like a brother passing or something like that.
Mm.
So we were hanging out with Hunter and them, and after the show, they went into like, I don't remember where they left, but it was Davey Havoc, and I wanted to meet him because I was a big fan of
Totally.
them from like for a long, long time. Darren Pluth introduced me to that band when I was like maybe 19 or something, and so I was standing in line, and I was standing in line, another line formed, and so I was signing autographs. And then he was like, we got up together, and he's like, this is interesting. And I go, this is really interesting. I don't know. We took some photos, and then there was some comments, but it was a really awkward, like, because first of all, I have a really ugly, like, signature. There's nothing cool about it. There's nothing like something like, it doesn't look like anything. I never practiced it, and I think I always misspelled my name.
That's hilarious.
I drank, after I got off, I never drank before, but after I got off stage, straight to the,
Yeah.
it made it easier. Josh, I met at Otto's Bakery. I don't even think he was in a band.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at the time, or he was just starting. He was like, I don't think, or it was his first. I know it was something that was super in the beginning or not. Like I met him, we talked. Like I was probably a big douchey guy at that time because I was a bit of a dick. I'm pretty sure he can confirm that. I'm pretty sure he'd be like, yeah, he was probably a really big dick or something. Mostly because I'm insecure about the music and playing. So when I get off after a show, I don't want to talk to people because I'm like, I was the worst thing ever. And having a hypercritical guitarist does that to you. I'm gonna call it out. But he was like this young, really. I just knew like he had. I didn't have the drive. I lucked out playing music. It was just like got into band and like it kind of went on the island. Kind of people like this. Like there was a drive to play it, but it wasn't an outwards. Like I didn't try to get on other people's. I didn't try to get on shows. Like we didn't have to. Like we just kind of like people say, hey, you're gonna play a show. We didn't have to do it. And I think other bands. Or when Josh was coming in there, they needed to get on the bill. Like they had a drive to do so, play better to get in there. And I think he became really, really big in the scene here.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I came back, when I moved up to Long Beach and then came back, I think I saw him. It was after our last show, and he had this real huge show, and I was like, holy shit! Like this is like amazing. So, congrats to him for doing that because we needed if all the good bands stop playing, then there's no scene.
It's crazy.
It's just bar.
I don't know what would have happened at that point in time when Josh first started throwing shows. It was, I think the first show he threw was the first Black Square show. And that's so we started in 2002, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it was we were working at Coffee Factory, which is now Lobster King on King and Kamoku, and the owner was like, "Hey, listen, you guys do these like punk show things." He's like, "Do one here." And Josh is like, "Oh, okay. Well, you know, we'll need like certain things." He's like, "Yeah, whatever. Like, you know, get a PA, whatever." So we get the thing together, and he's like, "Yeah, what do you just like? Do you charge money at the door?" He's like, "You guys just keep all the money, and I just want, you know, keep the coffee bar open." And he even let us, and everybody who came to the show got a free drink. So it was either like a soda or a coffee.
Oh, that's really?
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's fucking amazing.
It was crazy. I think he just wanted the place to kind of have people in it.
Yeah.
But it kind of worked against him because then all those kids would come and hang out because me and Josh, Brian, drummer from Black Square, our buddy Hoku, we all work there. So it was like, oh, yeah, kids from the punk scene work here. They would come hang out there. Yeah. It kind of worked, but then at the same time, well, he kind of, I don't think that's the clientele that he wanted hanging out there, but he was definitely making more money that way than had we not.
You know, there was a very similar story to like the Numbskulls, meaning the group, not the band. Like, because Jesse, I mean, there has been so many people in that band over the years. The roster is like a basketball team. Like, seriously, there's been so many. But all the friends were the band came after the name of the group of friends.
Oh, okay.
Right. So there was a group of friends that was it was way before even my time, and then Jesse and Algiers and I were driving around one night, and we restarted this group of friends called the Numbskulls, and I think I added the K because my last name starts with the K, and now it's probably disputed, but that's fuck them. Anyway, and I'm getting lost what I was saying, but what the fuck are we talking about? I had a long night, people.
The roster of the Numbskulls.
The roster of Numbskulls. No, a similar story to the coffee. Or to your guys' story about the clientele that were hanging out. Everybody hung out at a place called Java Javas. And Otto used to work at Java Java. And I've known Otto forever because when I was homeless and running around the streets with Cliff and Ryan Klimek and all the Numbskulls, he would bring us food.
Nice.
And he'd feed us. You know, and he'd give us, you know, he just gave us. He was just a super nice guy. He was always really, really nice to us. So also big reason why we had a following as we did is because of Otto. But we hung out there, and that brought more people into that shop. When they closed that down, I think the other one was called Internet Cafe, and it was down the street by Jack in the Box. This is all in Kapahulu. The guy who owned that didn't want everybody hanging out there, so we didn't want to stop. So he actually told us everybody in the group was 86.
Jesus.
So he kicked everybody out. Something happened. I think it might have been a fight or something. So then everybody just hung out at the parking, literally hung out, would go down there, hang out at the parking lot across the street. What are you doing? You're fucking have nothing to do. And
probably way worse for him. He's like, oh, great. Now you're not even spending money.
Nobody then, and since there was no intrigue, like there was a bunch of weird looking guys that were in a coffee shop as what's supposed to be in coffee shops. And so he told, I can't remember who he spoke to. He said, you guys can all come back. So he invited everybody to come back.
Oh, right. Because he's
the
like,
shop kind of died out.
I want to make that money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because you know, the whole thing about shows are you're not going to do a show just playing to one person.
Yeah.
But I have. Have you?
Oh, yeah.
What's your smallest show?
Rats did a show, maybe 6 people, maybe
Here?
like, yeah. It was for some reason. My friend just brought it up the other day. She was like, this girl works at Downbeat, Jasmine, and she was like, yeah, remember that Rat show where there was nobody there? There was like, I think 5 people. And I was like, I do remember it. And I remember after we played saying that was one of my favorite shows.
It was your favorite?
It wasn't my favorite.
But it was
everybody who was there was standing right in front of us.
Yeah.
And we just had a good time.
Those just scare me. So
yeah,
those shows,
for sure.
You're right, because they're all looking at you and they see you without. It's not like being at church, you know. I mean it, and metaphorically, of course, like where you're almost mesmerized by and like hypnotized by the band. So everybody's kind of feeling everything and vibing. You're critiqued, like you're sitting there. We did that. I think it was like maybe 5 or 6 people at a show. the night before we did the smoke out. And I'm thinking, why are we? First of all,
Oh, really?
yeah. So we played a show. The
Polar
night-
opposites.
Polar opposite. Yeah, that was horrible. The smoke out was terrible.
Was it? I remember
Yeah.
that.
I don't know what happened to sound. The manager for I think the manager for Cypress Hill came up after we played, and he's like something about. He was saying something about the sound man was fucking with us or something, or that you need to have a manager to make sure that the sound man doesn't fuck with you. You know.
Oh.
Like to make sure that you sound as good as any other band out there, because he's like, from what he's like, you guys need a band manager, or you guys need to have, you know, he's like, if you're a band, you got to have like everything that a successful band's gonna have, but we're not successful, so like it wasn't like,
So that's something that I feel like a lot of people might not understand.
yeah,
When you go to a big show, I saw it the other night, and I was like, motherfuckers. Descendants, Misdemeanor, Superfucked. Superfucked played first. Same equipment as Misdemeanor, I'm pretty sure. Regardless, it was all good equipment. I was watching them play right up front. It did not sound good.
it didn't sound good.
No. And then Misdemeanor goes on, sounded huge, and then Descendants go on. It's ridiculous. It sounds amazing.
Right.
So it's like the sound guys are, I think, I don't know if it's an unwritten rule or if it's actually spoken about. They make the opening bands not sound as good as the headliners.
I don't. You know, it's like they put a filter on it or
Something.
Shit.
Yeah.
You know what though? For us, Cliff, not so much me, because Cliff is like very analytical about it. When we play a bigger show, like something on a stage, like if you get the chance to do sound check, we would do a sound check. We would like check it. Like it wasn't so much like, I've seen bands that haven't opened for bigger bands before, and they go up and like check, and they do guitar, and they're like, yeah, that's good, and you're like, no, that's not even what you do at band practice or rehearsal, right?
Right.
Like your volumes, turn it up. Can I get more of this? I need more mix in this. But still, yet you'll sound amazing when you're you get there and you get to do like your sound check, and then the moment the show starts, it's all of a sudden like the whole mix went away, and you're like, it just sucks.
It's the worst.
It is. And I think it's part of like, maybe it's part of just what happens as like struggling to make it as a musician. But
That's a definite thing is a good sound guy.
yeah.
Just, I think the difference between a good sound guy and not is somebody who's just a happy person. Like,
Right.
because touring, we'd go and we'd show up in different cities, and it's like, there's a sound guy that's just a certain way.
Yeah.
And it's the same person in a different bag of skin.
Right. Totally.
But like,
yeah.
but then every once in a while you get a sound guy who's just nice, and they go, hey guys, what can I get for you? And you're like, oh, a little bit more guitar would be great. Okay, sure. And it just happens, and you're like, okay, what's the deal? Like,
He's
do you have
brand new.
do you have the magical system?
He just got out of school.
Or-
he just got
Not
out.
jaded?
It's his first job.
Yeah.
He didn't learn it. The band's
Man.
managers come up to him afterwards and are like, you fucked up this and you ruined the sound and that. But I'll tell you what, it wasn't the Misfits. It was we did another show at Pipelines. And I think again, I was a different person. So I think I pissed off the sound guy. I'm like, somehow. And when I came out, we had this introduction. I came out, it was like supposed to be this real loud yell and everything, like to wake everybody up, and he cut my mic, so I couldn't hear anything. And I was just like, and I did it louder. Of course, that's what you do. And I see the video, you see it, I'm like, fucking the mic.
Dude.
I shot my voice.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's just like, and then it was just like everything had to be one pitch higher. It's music's interesting. Like there's the stories that we talk about when we drink, and there's the stories that we talk about, but there's all these cool things that happen up on stage that you have to adapt to.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing. I could also talk about it forever, but I got to go to dinner.
For sure. Yeah, you got to get to dinner,
I
right?
do have to, yeah.
All right. Right on, man. Well, thank you so much for making a little time to come over and do this. I
Yeah,
appreciate
no
it.
problem.